Okay, welcome back, members and officers, to the meeting of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where we're discussing the Q2 Performance Report for 2023-24. We're now moving to Wellbeing Objective 4, and that's the county borough where we help people meet their potential. And I know I've got a question from Councillor Hughes on the basic income pilot.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think the statistics are quite interesting, aren't they? In that 58.2% of care leavers who are on the pilot are able to go into training or education after 3 months, compared to just over 80% for those who aren't on the scheme. The implication is that there's obviously a disincentive caused by the pilot, and I note that the pilot is going on until May 2025, so there's still a considerable amount of time for this to bed in. My question is really, is the Welsh Government aware of this disparity? And secondly, what can we do to try to address this obvious imbalance in performance? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. I think Claire would like to take this one.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Councillor Hughes. I think first of all, the important thing to emphasise is it is a pilot. It was very progressive, I think, in intent in terms of bringing this forward for a very vulnerable group in our population. And right from the start, because it was a pilot, evaluation was built in, and Cardiff University are progressing that evaluation and finding lots of positives from it. But obviously, they've got to be a very balanced evaluation in terms of the negative impact. So all of this is understood by Welsh Government and by those who are tasked with undertaking that evaluation. In terms of what we can do and what we are doing, so everybody who is a care leaver has the opportunity to have a personal assistant employed as part of our 16 plus team. And as part of that, they have what's called a pathway plan, which looks at all aspects of their life in terms of, as well as their education, employment and training. We're working very closely with employability. We've already talked about employability in this meeting, around access to employment, education and training, and the links there are being strengthened even further. There's a worker from the Multiply scheme, which is actually embedded and based within the 16 plus team as part of that. But we are working with Sue and the team to see how we can strengthen those links even further. I think what I would say is that the team are worried about this and concerned in terms of this PI, and have been highlighting, the difficulties they have in engaging young people in employment, education and training when, for the first time in their lives, they've got access to a resource far in excess of anything that they've had previously. So I'm sure all of that will come through in terms of the evaluation. But yes, there's a lot of work ongoing with those individuals to support them to access employment, education and training, because the basic income does come to an end at some point.
Thanks, Claire. And when does that review and evaluation conclude?
At the end of the pilot period.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. It's May 2025, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Hughes, for that clarification. Councillor Thomas, please.
Thanks, Chair. Apologies, I've had terrible IT problems this morning, but I appear to be working a bit better now. Hopefully you can hear me as well. It's not great. Oh, good, good. Just on the just seeking a bit of clarity on the aims of the pilot, really, for the universal basic income. Is the aim to, if it's successful for care leavers, is it the aim of the pilot to extend it for a longer period or forever for care leavers? Or is the aim then to extend the basic income to a larger cohort, or to the whole population? I'm just not clear on what the aim of the pilot is, and I know it's not. Well, it is quite fundamental, really, I suppose, really. So if I could have some clarity, really, on the aim of the pilot, that'd be great.
Thanks. Deputy Leader, would like to take this?
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the question. I would suggest that you ask Welsh Government, because until the end of the evaluation, we don't know where it's going. We've just been asked to collect all the data. I am a fan of UBI, so, you know, I'll put that on record. And the reason that I am, although I think the levels of funding that have been used during this trial are not reasonable, nor would it be something that is generally someone of that age earning that specific amount of money, if I'm honest. I do think there's a place for it, because I think it gives young people different opportunities that they may not have otherwise had. And of particular note is this is just care experienced children. And I think that's a big indicator of the cohort of young people that we are trying to help manage their opportunities going forward. But Welsh Government will have to give you what their ideal is after their evaluation. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Claire?
Yeah, so just to add to that, Welsh Government have already announced that the Universal Basic Income pilot project will not be continued after the initial pilot phase because of the cost. So it was oversubscribed in terms of the initial budget associated with it. I think that learning then in terms of the impact that it's had, both the positives and areas where if they do have the resource to implement UBI again in the future, that things might be done slightly differently will be critical, won't they, in terms of informing future policy. But just to echo what the Deputy Leader said, I think the reason that care experienced young people were chosen is because all the sort of start in life which you know, as corporate parents, we would want that particular group of young people to have. We as a local authority, as their corporate parents, don't have the resource to do this.
Thank you very much, Claire. Councillor Williams, please.
Thanks very much. My question was on Herons Bridge being red. Now in the report, it discusses increased costs. So I wondered why it's red. Is it because it's going to cost significantly more and so it's going to be delayed in the delivery, or are we concerned that it's not going to happen? Because these are some obviously the most vulnerable learners in our local authority, and I think it's desperate need for them to have some new facilities so that we can accommodate all the children who need to be schooled in such a setting. So I just wanted a little bit more information, because the report simply just says, obviously, funding levels, costs have changed since the initial agreement by Welsh Government. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Blundell, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see if I can get myself fully in the screen now. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Thank you, Chair. I'm sure Lindsay can come in with a bit more, but the fact that Herons Bridge is red compared to the others is just the sheer amount of money that has gone up. It has jumped astronomically ahead of where we originally looked at for funding for the school. We are speaking to Welsh Government about whether or not we can find more funding, but as with all our projects, capital projects in the school modernisation team, it is extremely difficult right now. We haven't made any sort of decisions yet going forward about, we call them this Band B, although it's not, we don't really have bands anymore. And we're meant to be looking at things like Band C, and we haven't even finished Band B yet. We all agree that that Herons Bridge needs a new site. That's all they're given. But we've also got to look at the other schools where, Meneth Cymfeg is in need desperately in need of a new site, because it needs a roof on its junior building, I believe. You could go for them all. School of Ecoscare and Kennelly schools are in a poor state as well and need a new site for the communities of Kennelly. So we haven't made any decisions yet. We are looking at them as we go forward next year. But as of just to the point now, you can make a case for all of them. And it's a really difficult one. So we are looking at possibly how we stagger them going forward, maybe. Instead of trying to commit them all in one go, trying to stagger because we don't want to abort any of these projects because they're all desperately needed. So the reason is Herons Bridge is just it's the astronomical size of the money, and the size of the site we need and the money we need is just outweighs anything more than any of the other schools. So hopefully it gives you a bit of clarity. I don't know if Lindsay has a little bit extra sort of from an officer point of view at it, but that's definitely the view of myself, and I'm going to say cabinet, but they can't say no.
Thanks, Councillor Blundell. Lindsay, please.
Thanks, Chair. And Councillor Blundell is correct. it is a challenge. This school, we've had the initial tenders back. It's extremely expensive. It's not out of line with any other construction project across the UK, let alone education. It's very, very challenging. And of course, we've had a number of things over the last 3 years that have impacted heavily on the construction industry, which have been well rehearsed in this forum. One of the challenges we do have, of course, is that we need to make sure that we provide all of our learners, not just those in Heronsbridge, with the best possible learning environments. The one thing I would say, and I would direct all members to view the report if they've not seen it already, last week the Estin inspection report of the current Heronsbridge school was published. It's outstanding. I believe there are no recommendations, and it's a particularly strong report on that school, and it does reflect the excellent work that's currently going on in the school. So to assure members, obviously what's going on in the school at the moment is first class. That's been recognised by Estin, but of course we want to provide a better facility going forward. But as Councillor Blundell says, Chair, the challenges with this school is the initial suite of tenders have been significantly over the expected price. We're currently negotiating with Welsh Government, as Councillor Blundell says, about whether or not there's additional funding available and whether or not we can value engineer some of these costs down. But alongside all construction projects at the moment, this is going to be difficult.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Councillor Williams, you content?
As content as I possibly can be, because it's not great news at all, because I know that the cost of schooling for these children is significantly higher. So if we are having to send children out of county or not provide them with the education that they need, then that's a massive concern for us, and it's only going to add to the costs elsewhere.
Sure, and as Councillor Blundell and Lindsay have said, it is a massive challenge, which I'm sure they're trying to resolve. Are there any other comments on WB04? We therefore move to WB05, and that is a county borough that is responding to the climate and nature emergency. And I know that Councillor Williams has a comment on planning.
Yep, thanks very much. I had one on the previous page first as well, and it was just one that I raised with Janine in our meeting last week with regards to things like planting trees, and I raised it with the opportunities for the valleys, but what we're doing to work with our community councils, who do, a lot of community councils do things like plant trees, schools plant trees, and I think if we've got an amber here, it could well not be an amber if we're all working together in partnership with other organisations, with schools and with community and town councils, because there's a lot of work that's going on out there that I don't think we're aware of in this report. So I think if we work closely with them, we might have we might not have ambers for some of these. So that's what I wanted to raise on that. And I know I have emailed Janine about some of the things we're doing in Coity Hire as an example. I know I've personally planted hundreds of trees with children this year, so of course that will all add to the 10,000 trees that have been planted. With regards to my question on planning, that's a concern with the red, particularly if we've got a freeze potentially on recruitment, because I know our planning staff are working extremely hard and there's a small team of them. I'm concerned it's going to impact on their well-being if they are constantly trying to achieve these targets. I wonder how realistic these targets are for them, and then any cost implications, because obviously if they're not going to be able to get through some of these planning applications in time, then I believe that the cost of that application can be recalled and the applicant can have that money back. And again, then when we've got the need for development of and jobs, bringing jobs to the area, if there's significant delays with those planning applications, that's going to delay any job openings and opportunities in the area as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Spansworth, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hang on, is it working? Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, sat here quietly, so it's nice to be able to get in on a very important topic. And the one that Councillor Mandel mentioned about trees is a very valid point, and there needs to be better links between town and community councils and the county borough when it comes to planting trees. We can do it, but we need to be coordinated we have a policy about the right tree in the right place. And I hope that's been done with town and community councils, but to be fair, a lot of them only have one clerk and they're not in full time. And I am concerned with the capacity sometimes and how well it's organised. So the more support we can provide the county borough to work and help with that, the better. And I wonder whether it's an option for a future town and community council forum meeting to get this link working better, to make sure we're, one, helping and supporting town and community councils when it comes to planting more trees, but two, to make sure it's coordinated and that we can build the numbers into the total quantity of trees that's been planted for future generations. So it's good stuff, but we can do it a little bit better, perhaps.
Thank you, Councillor Spanzer. Perhaps we can write to the Town and Community Council Forum to see whether they can consider that at their next meeting. Janine, would you like to take up the issue on planning?
Yeah, well, may I come back in on the issue with the trees as well? Because I had a really helpful email from Councillor Williams, and we did discuss it in another meeting about what we can do. So what we are, absolutely, if we can coordinate with community councils, schools, etc., absolutely, that's something we would want to do to try and get to that target, because it's going to be very challenging for us with our MTFS. The one issue, though, about planting the trees, it's to count towards our sequestration for our net zero carbon target. Now, what we are hearing back from Welsh Government, and it's a little bit unhelpful, I'm afraid, is that unless the tree is planted on our land, it can't count. So towards our net zero target. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be aiming for 10,000 trees, we should. But the reason it was in our plan, of course, was to contribute towards sequestration on our target. Now, we can, of course, any trees that are in parks, any trees that are in education, and any land that we own, absolutely, we can count those. So what we are trying to do is to push back at our colleagues in Welsh Government, considering the situation all local authorities have. You know, we really do need to take a good firm look at 2030 and look at the boundaries and what they have set for that to you know, so that we can do more of these community initiatives, because it's certain that local authorities will have to work closer with town and community councils in the future in order to deliver more services and third sector, etc. So that's one thing, Councillor Williams, just to let you know, we're pushing back on Welsh Government to understand what that means. That's not to say we don't want to do it, but it would be great if we could get it counted towards our net zero target. And then if I come on to the planning piece, I mean, it is it's difficult. And I know we've talked about this on numerous occasions. The target that is set is a national target that we should get over 80% of our planning applications determined within 8 weeks. And to be quite frank, that's a target Welsh Government have had for the last 15 years. And it really isn't relevant now. However, it's something they still continue to monitor, and it is something we're pushing back on. For me, it's always been about the quality of decisions, not the quantity. As long as we're making good decisions, that's more important to me than the numbers game. And that's more important to my team as well. And I think the quality of decisions really stands us in firm stead in Bridgend, because we've got a very good DCC committee. And also we have very little appeals that we lose, very small amount of appeals. We perform very strongly in that regard. However, we've got to acknowledge our planning department's very, very small. I've said previously, we've got the smallest planning department in Wales, smaller than the Brecon Beacons. We are, however, in the middle of a restructure. This was something that we agreed previously. We've done stage 1 of the restructure, and we've got some new people that have joined us in senior posts, have brought some experience with them, which is great. And we are looking at the lower level posts now to recruit into those. They are not part of the vacancy freeze, thankfully, because it's something that we have agreed and we do need to put in place. And of course, the planning department, in theory, washes its own face. The money it makes from application fees is what pays for the staff in the department. We've had a number of significant applications come in recently. We have determined the tennis centre, the Bridgend College site. We're looking at South Wales Police firing range. You know, we have some very large applications that have attracted very large fees in the hundreds of thousands of pounds that have come in. Also, if we do get our LDP approved in January, then we are going to have some very, very large schemes coming forward, very large housing schemes that are going to be very resource intensive. So what I would say is I'm not overly worried about being red in terms of the number of applications determined. For me, it's about the quality of decision we make. However, I do think having more resources into the department with a bit more experience will really help us and assist us, and hopefully get through some more of those applications. I mean, we have, as a result of COVID, believe it or not, people now are very keen on doing home improvements and extensions. So we have, as well as having a lot more large applications, major applications, the amount of minor applications has increased significantly as well. So all that's good news. The people are enjoying and living in the borough and want to improve their homes and lives. That's all good news. So for us, it's trying to recruit to that structure and try and reinforce the amount of planners we've got. And then we may, as a consequence, see an improvement on that figure. But for me, genuinely, it's about the quality of the decisions we're making. So I hope that gives you a little bit of narrative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Janine, for that comprehensive answer. Councillor Williams, you content?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Griffiths?
Yes, so two comments on the two topics we're talking about here interchangeably. So one, I believe that planning is actually a profit centre rather than a cost centre, and so it actually does make sense for us to invest in staff here, because it will help the department, but also it's a profit centre. It makes us money. Going back onto the trees thing, I want to make a couple of points around WBO 5.2.2, which wasn't the one that Councillor Williams mentioned, but it's the previous one. So I also sit on Bracklow Community Council, and I just want to report back that those connections between BCC and Bracklow Community Council are very strong. We've had visits from the biodiversity officer, and we had a presentation to the community council. So those things which you suggested, Janine, are actually already happening, and we are aligning our plans as a community council with BCC's broader plans. The question I wanted to ask you was that in WBU 522, it talks about no funds identified yet. My understanding was that there are some funds for this year that are available and for next year, and they're currently, there's discussions about where they're going to be spent. So I'm just querying here whether that is red, because I believe there is some money this year and next year. That was certainly what was communicated to us for some projects, but perhaps that's in a different bucket. I'm not sure, but I'm just questioning whether that really should be red or whether it could actually be a green, because these things are happening.
Yes,
Thank
do you mind, Chair? Yeah, thank you. I think you are right, Chair, and Councillor Griffiths, in as much as we have money this year and we are designing up schemes for the Planca in the main, a very comprehensive scheme for planting and biodiversity enhancements up at the Planca. But what we don't have is money outside of that scheme to do any more. So it probably isn't red. I think you're probably right there. What we have is one very good scheme that we're bringing forward, but it won't be implemented until next year because they're in the planting season. But we don't have monies to provide anything else outside of that. So I think you're right. It probably shouldn't be, it should be maybe pale yellow, and maybe not amber or red. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Councillor Spanswick?
Yeah, it's a valid point. I think on the I've got work with Contact Nature Network, that was what was happening, but then there's a lot happening. And my understanding, there was a shared prosperity fund where there's some finance and funds coming forward. And only yesterday there was an email went out from the biodiversity team to numerous councillors in the Bridgend area, San area, Kevin Glass, about schemes that are happening now for Christmas, planting some trees in some parks and open spaces there, Newbridge Fields. There's probably half a dozen areas altogether that are having some works taking place now before Christmas. So that's some good stuff going on, but it's not perhaps the Contact Nature Network funding in the past. It's more perhaps now shared prosperity funding. So it shouldn't be red, really. It should be an amber at the very least, because there's some good stuff happening as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Griffiths, you content?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thomas?
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Chair. Froggy throat. Quite interested in the commitment to invest in energy efficiency improvements to council buildings. The narrative says that progress has been hampered by the lack of internal revenue, and it's seeking external grants. I just wondered, what grants they could be in the first instance. Secondly, I noticed that, excuse me, a lot of the PIs connected to this appear to me to be looking at things like utilities consumption, so gas consumption, electricity consumption, and that could go up or down depending on the number of staff in the building, and that wouldn't necessarily be a fair reflection of energy efficiency of the actual building. So I'm just wondering, have we done any analysis on things like energy performance certificates? And if so, have we got any buildings that are a particular concern, the F&Gs, that sort of thing? And are we going to have any milestones to try and get those EPCs that are ranked at the lower levels down to a more sufficient performance certificate level?
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Who would like to take that, Janine?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yeah, hopefully I can provide you a positive narrative on both of these. So one of the things we want to do is to look at the refit process, because we did refit 1 on schools buildings. We don't have the level of investment in the council to be able to do that. So refit 1 was done via Salex loan with a payback over 6 years. And now we have lots of other school buildings and buildings of our own that we're very interested in putting a refit 2 process on the schools. Now, what I would say is that we lost our energy manager during COVID, and we've only just successfully recruited a new one. So it's been a couple of years where we haven't had an energy manager. So the new gentleman we have in post is called Kieran Swift, an excellent officer, very innovative and very proactive. So what Kieran is looking at is what grants are available through Welsh Government. They have got quite a few schemes, and also working with the Welsh Government Energy Service. We've had some conversations with them, because one of the things that Kieran has identified is our roof spaces across the county. Now, what he's saying is that a roof space can be an energy provider in that if we put panels up there, we can actually sell energy, we can, if we're not using it ourselves, etc. And what he's saying is he's put a report together, which we're going to take to the 2030 programme board, about the ability to generate energy from our roof space. Also looking at what are the other sources of funding that can help us with our energy in the borough. Now, with regard to the energy certificates for the buildings, absolutely, that's something he's also doing. For instance, he has, he's only one person, and we've got a very large estate. So what he is doing is he started working with schools where their energy consumption is way above where he thinks it should be. So what he's done is he's looking at the big hitters first. He's gone into some schools, and he has found some significant savings working with the Lindsay's education team and corporate landlord. We have saved 20,000 on energy costs in some schools just by looking at the way their boiler is used, looking at the timing, looking at having lights on timers, just things that we think actually would be fairly rudimentary and basic things. And he's also looked to switch, as a county council, our energy tariff corporately to a much better tariff, and we have done that recently, and by switching that tariff we have managed to save 158,000 on our corporate energy bill from the switch tariff. So Kieran has already paid for himself for the next 10 years in terms of the savings he's delivered. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's an awful lot to do. He is only one person. But going forward, we want to be able to tell you more about these things. None of it is easy, of course, because we have to look for grant funding to assist us. But this is something that we are pleased to see some movement on. So it's amber, it's not green, because we haven't managed to secure some of those grants that we would like, but we're well on our way to looking at external sources of funding, more schemes in the mix. And we'll be bringing a report to CCMB, to our cabinet colleagues early next year about what we think we could do next. What is our next step in enhancing energy efficiency in our buildings? So hopefully that gives you a bit of a comprehensive answer there.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Chair, may I come back in just with one other point, just for clarity, really?
Certainly can, but the Cabinet member would like to contribute as well. But we'll come to you first, Councillor Thomas.
Oh, thank you. Great response. Thank you. It's really interesting. It's a little bit of an area of interest to me. I'm interested about the Salex loan. I think you had referenced that before. It's jogged my memory. Interested by the 6-year term. I'm aware of the fact that the minimum energy efficiency standards for domestic and non-domestic buildings, they have an exemption if they're not cost effective over a 7-year payback period. So is the aim with the Salex loan over that 6-year term period, is it to be cost effective at the end of that Salex loan period?
Well,
with the energy savings.
Yeah, the idea is that after the 6 years, you're making all of those energy savings in the school. They're already making savings, even paying the loan back, because the energy efficiency piece is creating savings. But once you finish paying the loan, you can take the whole saving. So yes, does that make sense? A bit like a mortgage on your house. Once you finish paying your mortgage, you can bank the whole saving. Yeah. So we are the Refit 1 scheme. We're about 2 years in, so they got about another 4 years to go, and they will be banking all of those energy savings as they go along. But another lovely side effect of this as well, which is not unintended, but of course the children in the school are incredibly interested now because we've got monitors everywhere that show how well the school are doing. And if we can educate our future generations on how important energy efficiency is, that's an important part of the role of all of this as well. A bit of education for our next generation of eco warriors. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Councillor Spanzer, please.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to add to what Jean said, that she did touch at the beginning about we have a monthly carbon reduction board meeting, which I chair and officers attend and go through numerous energy efficient things and where we are with carbon reduction in 2030. But unfortunately, the meeting in December last week was cancelled because, believe it or not, we were busy trying to deal with the budget issue. So the next one in January, between now and then, there are at least, I think, 3 papers coming forward on reports on projects for energy efficiency. And one of them, I'm almost sure there's something like a 90% grant to look at heat source pumps in one of our buildings to look at reducing our energy use. So there's some exciting stuff coming. It'll be for the next January meeting to hopefully approve 3 different projects to utilise some of the capital, because there is a small capital allocation then this year to deal with contribution towards projects and grants. So there's some more positive news in the new year, hopefully, on where we go with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Spanzer. Councillor Thomas, you contend.
Sorry, yeah, that's very interesting. Look forward to seeing improvements over the duration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, interesting to have that question from Councillor Thomas, and it went into quite a lot of detail, didn't it? But we don't have any energy consumption data reported in Q2, and presumably we need to understand our energy consumption in order to inform decisions around how and where we invest in energy efficiency improvements and so on. So it'd be good to see that data in Q3 if we have it. My next question, I suppose, is on WB 5.2, page 52. Again, it refers to blue flag beaches and green flag parks, but again, no Q2 data in there. I'm assuming we know if we've got some of those in place in our area already, and should we not be having that data in Q2? And if not, are there any of these blue flag areas or green park areas due for assessment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. So bring in Janine and then Kate. Janine, you're on mute.
Apologies, yeah. Green flag and blue flag are assessed every couple of years. So they're in there, but there's no assessments due on any of them. We've just been awarded them. So there's no assessment. So that really won't change quarterly. What we could do, though, we could put the inspection date in there. When we are next inspected. So yeah, that might be helpful, Councillor Bennett, because you won't see any movement on that on quarters.
I guess my question is, do we have any now? Because there's none reported in Q2. It says not
Yeah,
applicable. So should we
Oh,
not
no,
have
absolutely.
Yeah. So how many blue flag beaches do we
2
have? How
blue,
many?
3 green.
Right. So they should be in there really, because again, we're underselling our performance, I suppose.
Yeah, we can add those in. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we can reflect that in the Q3 dashboards then. Kate, please.
No, just to come in on that, the reason that we're reporting it as that we aren't given the data on those two at the moment, that the blue flag and green flag, is again, it's to do with that this idea of us really making the PIs quite robust in the way that we've developed them and the way that they're calculated. So like with a lot of indicators like this that are national indicators, we've chosen to do it the way that the old PAMs would have done it, which is how many blue flag and green flag parks and beaches we have on the 31st of March. So we can't really say, I know that you wouldn't think we would lose any of our, or we know that there's nothing coming up to have extra ones, but we do have to choose a point in time to judge it on. Otherwise you could have a PI like this where the data would fluctuate. So the rationale for that has actually been set to maintain. So what you can see as the target there is what we currently do have. I suppose we could put something in the narrative to explain how we're calculating the PI, but yeah, with ones like that, we're trying to get away from giving estimates earlier in the year when we really do need to pin it down to a date, to a fixed point.
Thank you, Kate. Janine, you'd like to come back in?
Yes, please. I think what we need to do here then is make this an annual target, don't we? As opposed to report quarterly, because if we can't quarterly give an update for the reasons you just stated, Kate, we need to say we will look at this PI once a year at this date. And sorry as well, Councillor Bennett, I gave you the wrong. We got 3 blue and 2 green. I said it the other way around. I knew we had 5 flags, but I said it the wrong way around there. And if I may come back as well, Chair, the other comment from Councillor Bennett was about the energy piece. Now, again, this for us in the environment team and energy team is an annual indicator. And the reason that we say this, we look at our gas and electricity consumption because it varies throughout the year. So for instance, in the summer, we don't have the heating on, so we could be doing very well against our indicator. We think, oh gosh, we're up on the indicator. And then of course, during the winter, when we have the gas on, we're back down on the indicator. So the best thing to do is take an annual reading of where we are in terms of our energy consumption. And then to look at, did we overall throughout the year see an improvement and see a drop in our energy use? Because doing this on a quarterly basis won't really give you very much. You'll see now in the winter we're up. And then, when the heating goes back off, you'll see a dip. So for us, very much again, maybe these two now need to be recognised as annual indicators. So you won't get you won't see a movement in Q2. You won't see something until Q4 or even Q1 next year, where we'll be able to look at our annual consumption and what we've done. So hopefully that will that explains that a little bit better.
Thank you, Janine. Councillor Bennett, you content with that approach?
Yeah, that does make more sense. I kind of thought, because we know that there are seasonal effects, that we'll see some trends and some smoothing, but as long as that information is being tracked somewhere within the authority, then I suppose that makes sense. Just coming back on what Kate's point was, though, in terms of the blue and green flags, and sorry to labour a point, but if we're looking at Q2, we're looking at the actuals, aren't we? Well, that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I'm assuming is where we're actually at now. And we already have 3. We've met the target in a sense. And I know that the reassessment will happen at a certain point in time, but then the commentary can reflect that if it drops because a reassessment hasn't been successful or so. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, well, we've achieved that target because we've got 3 and 2 already, but it's not being reported. So I find that a little bit odd. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bennett. Are there any supplementary remarks from any officers or just a note? Kate?
Yes, I'll look at the narrative on those. Obviously, they are down as annual indicators, and the 2 and 3 that you can see there are last year's, what we already knew on the 31st of March 2023. So until we get to to the 31st of March 2024, we don't know for definite that that's what our outturn value is. So that's the problem there in looking at it like that. But yeah, we can definitely put something in the narrative and maybe look at when we're doing the delivery plan for next year, maybe looking at the language there and making sure that's all a lot more clear.
Thank you very much, Kate. Are there any other members that would like to come in on WB05? Okay, we'll move on to WB06 then, and that is a county borough where people feel valued, heard, and part of their community. Please raise your hand if you have a question on this particular indicator. Councillor Ross Penhale-Thomas, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, a couple of questions around the commitment around 6.2.3, which is developing the Climate Citizens Assembly. First question, can you just clarify if the, perhaps while disappointing, perhaps surprising given the challenges that we are facing in this budget round, can you just confirm that the 100,000k identified there is an in-year saving? Can you identify that as a percentage of the saving? I'm guessing that's 100%. And secondly, I think it's really important that it's an area that where we cannot afford not to take people with us. In my professional life, I've done some sort of low-level community engagement around climate change, decarbonisation and net zero. It's absolutely paramount that people are residents come along with us on the journey to explore different models of operation, energy efficiency, and what it means for them as citizens beyond the wider sort of decarb agenda. So are we thinking about doing things differently if the Climate Change Assembly then, that sort of direct sort of shaping of our agenda isn't possible as a result of budget cuts? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penhale-Thomas. Janine?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Penhale-Thomas. Yeah, we are currently in the midst of an incredibly difficult MTFS round, and as part of that, the Communities Directorate has had to look at savings of up to £3 million. And as you could imagine, it's difficult for anybody, but in the Communities Directorate, where we've already stripped 12 million out over the last 10 years with only a 30 million budget to start with, an additional 10% is incredibly difficult. So what we've had to do is to make some very difficult decisions. And one of them is regarding the 2030 agenda and what can and can't we do. And I'm afraid one of them is the Climate Citizens Assembly. Now we are looking at, are there other ways that we can inform people? But I'm afraid at this stage, when we look at our priorities, I cannot spend £100,000 on this at this stage when I have services at risk, when I have redundancies, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Now, that isn't a saving that's been confirmed yet. These are savings that are part of the MTFS. They will go forward. And it is approximately about 40% of that 2030 budget. So I think that's probably as much as I can say at this stage, Councillor Penhale. But we will look, of course, we will look at seeing what other avenues we have to speak and consult with our residents, because you are absolutely right, it's critical. They play a part in this. The climate emergency is literally everybody's business, isn't it, for our future generations? But this is, our council is going to look very different after this budget round, and I'm afraid this may be one of those. I mean, our corporate plan is going to look very different. This is something that I think may be a casualty of that, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much, Janine. Councillor Spanswick, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think also the jury's out as to what the effectiveness of Climate Citizens Assembly. From what I understand and what I've over the last year or so attended various climate change leadership programs, a lot of them based in England on England experience, but there wasn't a great deal of evidence that they work, the amount of resource and funding needed to get them set up. There's also been an issue about the actual payment and reimbursement of members of the Citizen Assembly and how that would work, and that itself creates a massive admin burden. So while the jury's out as the effectiveness of the Citizen Assembly, there's also our own internal issue of budget, resource, and priorities going forward. And our number one priority is going to be protecting the vulnerable. Has to be. And unfortunately, some of these areas within our commitments on net zero 2030 are going to have to be pushed back. We have limited options when it comes to budgets.
Okay, thank you for your contributions. I think perhaps we should reserve our comments on forthcoming budget and financial strategy until such time as we consider them after the proposals have come before us next month. But we'll come now to Councillor Tim Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a question about the area around community asset transfers. I just wondered if really, you know, the CAP transfers, they're ongoing and there's lots of developments with them. Just wonder if we could have a little recap, really, might help members. It certainly helped me. If we could have a little recap where we are with them. If I'm reading the spreadsheet correctly, it says that 10 have been converted. Just to have a little bit of a quick insight into what they were, because I was having a conversation with a member of the public, and this gentleman alluded to the fact that one of those asset transfers has ceased to continued, and it's been reverted back to council ownership. And I don't know if that's true. I'm just going on a conversation with the member of the public. And my second area I wanted to question on asset transfers, it was what is the rationale behind them originally? My understanding was to save money for the authority, and it just seems like a massive industry going into this. And is it really, if the original aim was to save money for the authority, is it achieving its aims?
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. We'll go to the Deputy Leader first, and then to the Cabinet Member for Communities, and then to the Corporate Director for Communities.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas, for the question. I just wanted to give you a good case study around a community asset transfer. The reason it was transferred from council ownership to the community was because they are able to get grant funding, like lottery, oh God, what's the rugby one? WRU, yeah, I can't think this morning. I do beg your pardon, but they've been, the amount of money that they have earned in relation to the clubbing grant funding has been significant. And I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds in relation to the development of the site. Now, that wouldn't have been achieved had it remained in council ownership. And I think that's important to note, because we're not able to apply for those grants. So that was the prime reason. Yes, it was around budgets, but yes, communities are more able to access grant funding and lottery funding, all sorts of sports funding. And I think that's important, because that's of greater benefit to my community than the council owning it and not being able to do anything with it, and significantly improving people's well-being in the ward. And I say that because now we have women's rugby in the ward, as an example, which we never had previously, and the amount of children's sports groups that all use this site. So I think it's really important to note that was the original point in question, and you were indeed on the council when this was agreed. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Spanswick, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the original community asset transfer, it was introduced partly to reduce some costs for maintaining buildings and green space, open spaces, sports pitches, but also, as the Deputy just said, to give clubs where they're able to facilitate them to get other grants that we can't access and get improvements in buildings and facilities for the communities. But that's not the case across all communities. Some clubs and some areas are more capable and more organised to do that than others. But it has been a success to date. I'm not sure where, because Thomas says there's a big industry behind it, because we have one full-time officer and one part-time officer actually running this process in the County Borough of Jenner and do a marvellous job. And I'm not aware of any has handed any facilities back lately. That's news to me. and perhaps the easiest thing to do out is, rather than trying to go through all the schemes, because there's a monthly CAT steering group that the chair goes place, and there's a spreadsheet which shows where we are with different clubs have expressed interest, where ones are proceeded or where ones have just shown initial interest. And there is a lot of work to get to the end stage, but it involves legal process and legal staff and resources are thin the ground when it comes to processing and getting to the end of the CAT process. But I'm aware of all the valley areas there's CAT transfers either gone through or going through or shown express interest, and other parts of the county borough. So it's a good news story also, but it does need looking at for the future, because perhaps lots of the early interest has been dealt with, and the ones that are left, there may be some areas where it's not possible for CAT transfers, and we need to decide how we deal with them in the future to make sure communities are not left out if they don't have a CAT transfer. But a positive story all told, and it has, I think the parks budget itself has reduced over time due to CAT transfers, so it has reduced the revenue budget available for maintenance spaces, because those spaces have gone to voluntary groups or town and community councils.
Thank you, Councillor Spanzik. Janine, please.
Yes, to be fair, I think the deputy leader and my cabinet member have probably covered most points, but this was an agreed alternative delivery model agreed by council. It has achieved savings for this council. They've been tracked. We can give information to Councillor Thomas via the CAT steering group. And again, importantly, it was about investing into those facilities for communities to run for the future. Because those facilities, it's quite clear as the further we get into this MTFS, we will have less and less ability to support those facilities. So it's ensuring the protection of community facilities for years to come, really. But I think that's probably all I need to say at that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Thomas, you content with those replies?
Yeah, obviously I look forward to the information Janine will supply to me. And interesting point from the deputy leader. I agree with that. You know, these clubs do get access to grants. I mean, she's referenced women's rugby. That's brilliant. I myself managed to source a small grant from the community, the Coalfields Regeneration Trust, for the development of girls football, I should say, for Tondy United. So yeah, that's great, and yeah, look forward to the some of the financial information for the overall project. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and it was remiss of me not to bring in Councillor Pennell Thomas after his original question, so I'll come back to him now.
Oh, that was absolutely fine, Chair. I think to a large extent the director's hands are tied by you know, the challenging budget environment. I'm just moving on to 642, which is the commitment to helping people find activities and groups in their communities. There's plenty of research to suggest that when people are looking after their well-being and they're not feeling isolated, they're far less likely to access what could be quite costly council services. But I think we're lacking a bit of detail, really, as to why quite this is amber, and less detail still on what we're proposing to do to ensure that we move from amber to green. So would appreciate some insight on that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gebby.
Thank you very much for the question. I think what I would say is there's lots of work going on around a coordinated approach with partners. That's not just within Social Services and Wellbeing Directorate, but that's also with wider stakeholders such as the Health Board, Police and Justice, Fire and Rescue, and the list is pretty endless. I can give you a whole list of all people that are involved in the stakeholder reference group. But part of that is around not duplicating effort. So as the RPB, one of the things we are trying to do is map every service and provision across the Cwmtaf Morgannwg area. So it's quite a piece of work. Public Health Wales have already undertaken some of that work, so I think that's important to note. And it is about keeping people in their communities less reliant on public services, because the more engaged they are in community activities, the less reliant they are on us as public services to manage anything that they need to be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gebby. Claire, please.
Yeah, just to build on what Councillor Gebby has said, and to answer the question about why amber, is amber because it's very much work in progress. We haven't completed this work. There's a lot going on across organisations. So we as a council have extended our local community coordinator resource, so that's 6 individuals working across the county borough now. There's the community navigators in Barvo, but other organisations, as Councillor Gebby has said, are invested in this wellbeing workforce. There's social prescribers, the RSLs are very committed to asset-based community development, and we don't want to duplicate in our wellbeing workforce. So it needs that coordinated approach, and that's the work which Councillor Gebbie has referred to.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pennell-Thomas, you content?
Yeah, that's fab. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Granville, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to indulge a little bit here, I wasn't going to raise it today, but it has been mentioned about community centres. I'm just wondering, the people that have taken on community centres to the director, we are finding, I'll speak in my own patch, in Canelli, the gas and electric has gone through the roof. We're paying extortionate rates for it. I'm just wondering, is it possible, perhaps if the county borough could look at, come in under the borough's umbrella of buying of gas and electricity, which would be cheaper for community centres to be run on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Granville. Councillor Gebbie, please.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Granville. As you know, I'm chair of community centre. I would suggest that you get your manager to send me an email, because we've got a really, really good deal on our energy currently, because last year's was absolutely atrocious. So I'm just putting that out there and I'm giving you that offer, because as a council, I'm not sure that it would be a good scheme for us to involve ourselves in, considering where the ownership, I want to say, of some of the community centres lies. Thanks very much.
There we go. Councillor Gebbie's like Martin Lewis there, trying to save you money. Councillor Granville, so thank you very much for that. Are there any other comments on WB06? Just one from me, and that's WBO 6.3, and it's the percentage of first call resolutions that are customer services. You say that you're going to be upskilling advisors to deal with calls at the first point of contact. Can I ask how that is progressing and what actions you're taking to upskill some of our call handlers?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. In terms of the upskilling, we were looking at areas where there's opportunities to work with services, specifically MASH, the Common Access Point and registrars. It is a process in terms of identifying what tasks can be done at first point of contact, because as you see from the PI, we've gone through quite an extraordinary period prior to that. As you know, we had the COVID pandemic with the winter payments, fuels, etc., where at that first point of contact, all our customer contact agents could respond to that. So it's a process now where we go and identify opportunities where we can deal with those calls at that first point of contact, albeit the complex calls will always go back to the respective areas in terms of being dealt with, hence where our PI has gone down slightly there, because although 95% or between 95 and 98% calls are handled, we've had to pass back into the secondary areas. So that's a work in progress, Chair, in terms of identifying and then upskilling our officers.
Thank you very much, Martin, for that. Moving then to WB07, and that's a county borough where we support people to live healthy and happy lives. I know that Councillor Amanda Williams has a question on active travel. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was just about active travel and all of the different schemes, because we seem to have some schemes. I know we used to have a plan, an active travel plan, which set out when we were going to work on schemes. And obviously Coity Hire is a classic example where they've got an active travel route partway into town, but it's not finished. Is this amber now, because we've got a lot of schemes like that that are halfway there, but obviously the costs now means that they're not going to be achievable, or they're going to be pushed back with delays, because a lot of these would then allow people like the school children to be able to walk far easier to school and people into town, and reduce the impact on vehicles into town. So I just wondered if we could have a bit more on why they're amber, or is it simply because there are so many and trying to choose which ones are completed? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Janine, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Williams. No, I'm afraid it's none of those things. Unfortunately, Welsh Government have significantly reduced the amount of money that's available in active travel. For instance, this year we've just had over £1 million. In previous years, we've had 5 million. So we have only 20% of what we used to have. And the thing with active travel, you have to apply annually for the grant. So what we generally do is apply 1 year and design and consult on some schemes, implement some schemes and finish others. And the next year we move the schemes on sequentially. So what we also have is a team of 4 people where there's 3 vacancies. So I only have 1 officer in that team. And so a culmination of high number of vacancies, 1 officer, and far less money means we can do far less work, I'm afraid, going forward. So the whole active travel piece, the reason it's amber is it will slow down significantly going forward, in line with Welsh Government's reduction, because we obviously as Bridgend can't fund these things ourselves. We're heavily reliant on monies from Welsh Government. The other thing as well this year, Councillor Williams, is that we've had an awful lot of our resources sucked into the 20-mile-an-hour implementation across the borough. That was something we had to get in place in September, and I'm afraid that scheme is still being implemented and we're still working through the process. So again, that was something that was Welsh Government asked us to implement. So with the resources I've got, finite resources I have to prioritise work. So it's a culmination of a number of things, I'm afraid. We would love to do more active travel. We'd love to finish the links we have. In fact, we'd like active travel throughout the whole borough. It's such a key part of placemaking. And as part of our LDP, it really is a strong thread through our LDP. But I'm not sure in the future we're going to be able to do as much. So this is why it's flagged as amber this year. You may see towards the end of the quarter, it may even turn red. So I'm afraid that's just a little bit of a health warning about our active travel schemes going forward, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Councillor Williams, you contend?
Well, it's a bit of a worry, but considering we've been told we've got to get out of the cars and we haven't got the active travel routes, we haven't got the bus services, we haven't got, how are we going to get around? We're going to be reliant on cars for years to come because there's simply no investment, it seems, in allowing us to be able to walk what would be a simple routes. So it is a bit concerning, and I think it is going to end up red then.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any other contributions on WBO7? Just as a rider to that, really, and it's included in the regulatory tracker and some of the corporate risk register as well, in that we have national policy commitments such as active travel, which Councillor Williams has just mentioned, the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit change. In education, we have the universal free school meals offer and the 21st School Modernisation Programme. All of these national policy commitments are expected to be delivered by local government without necessarily the consequential funding which comes with it. So there's got to be a point in time whereby we push back on this and ensure that the adequate funding flows down from both UK government and Welsh government so that these projects can be delivered, because clearly not everything is possible. And I think, Janine, you mentioned in your directorate, you haven't been able to introduce charging for blue badge holders, for example, because your officers have been elsewhere trying to deploy national policy commitments. So there's not enough funding in the pot to be able to deliver them. So I hope that political colleagues within this room and Scrutiny colleagues as well can ensure that we lobby for both UK government and Welsh government funding to flow down to enable us to do this. I think that's one of the major corporate risks that face us, in that we don't have the capacity to be able to deliver these projects. Councillor David.
Thank you, Chair. I can certainly reassure the Chair and all members of this committee and all members of this authority, we regularly take the opportunity through the Welsh Government, Welsh Local Government Association, the collective voice for 22 local authorities in Wales. We regularly take that opportunity to make the case to Welsh Government ministers for the need for any new commitments on local authorities to be fully funded. We've had some success in that. So, for example, the commitment to roll out universal free school meals in our primary schools has been fully funded. We've secured additional capital because, of course, not only is there a revenue cost, an ongoing revenue cost for the provision of preparing the meals, purchasing the ingredients, but also most of our kitchens, if not all of them, have required some adaptations, and some schools have required new kitchen facilities, and we've secured that funding, and we'll continue to make that case. But there is a greater risk going forward because we now have less resilience within the organisation. So if there are going to be further commitments, it is going to be more difficult to deliver on them, and that is a case we keep making to Welsh Government. Thank you, Chair.
I'm sure you'll have unanimous support across the council in doing so. Councillor Gebbie, please.
Thank you very, very much, Chair. And just to build on what Councillor David has said, you'll be aware that the WLGA significantly raised various things. One of the things we raised at in budget discussions is Welsh Government said with the teachers' pay rise as an example that we were going to receive the £3 million that it would cost to do that. But now we think it's going to, we don't know if we're going to get it identified in our RSG. And the other thing is the real living wage for all care staff. And I suppose that's one of the conversations we need to have. Welsh Government keep giving us this direction. And whilst they might fund it initially for the first 3 years and the grant funding, it then goes into our RSG. But that's more difficult to identify, as I'm sure Caris will attest to. And I wouldn't disagree with any of their policy decisions coming out of Welsh Government. But we are very insistent that they need to fully fund that, and it needs to be made available to us on a yearly, ongoing basis via our consequential. I did send round to Scrutiny 2 yesterday. I don't know if it's been sent out to you yesterday, but the WLGA have made representations in relation to social services, specifically around budget pressures. That will be sent out to you all because I've given you a particular note on it to look at the case studies at the end, because we get an awful lot of quantitative data, but we actually need to look at the qualitative data as well to understand what it means to our residents out there. So I think that will be of note. Meryl, I don't know if you want to send it round to all members, but please note this hasn't been released as public yet, so I would appreciate your confidence in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gebbie. Go to the next Cabinet Member now, Councillor Blundell.
Yeah, thank you. Just really, I've not really got much else to add really than the leader and the deputy leader mentioned there, but it is one of the main parts of our jobs in Cabinet is to have those discussions with the relevant deputy minister or minister in Welsh Government. I met with the Minister for Education and the Welsh Language yesterday on the budget going forward, and those points that the Dep raised about teachers' pay, UPFSM that the leader raised, home to school transport, all these things we discussed with them. And I know the DEP meets with the Deputy Minister for Social Services and the Minister of Health, and Councillor Spansrick meets with the Minister for Climate Change and so forth. We do meet with them, and we do hold ministers to account to the point that these things are not going to go away. You can't hide and just make a policy and run away. You have to fund them, because at the end of the day, you make the policy, but we deliver on them. And the way for us to deliver on them safely and effectively, we need to be funded properly by that. But that's the case we make, I would say, daily. Between at least one of us is talking to a minister on at least a daily to weekly basis. So just to add to hopefully reassure members that we're not just sitting on our hands on this.
Okay, thank you very much for that contribution, Councillor Blundell. Councillor Thomas, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a little bit of clarity. Looking at the commitments of concern and the wider commitments to this wellbeing goal, there's no mention of any commitment towards the, I forget if it's 15 or 20 minute, the 15-minute communities. Is that something that this council is still committed to achieving?
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. I'm not sure who would like to take that. Janine would like to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Thomas is a 20-minute neighbourhood that we are committed to, and that's part of our LDP. And that is part of placemaking. And what we're saying is, when a new community is being developed, you should have all the facilities that you require sustainably within 20 minutes. And that's part of the LDP. So I think you'll see more of that as and when that LDP is approved. So hopefully that assists. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Janine. Does any other member have any questions on the Q2 performance report? I can't see anyone indicating. So after a 3-hour discussion on the Q2 performance report, I'll draw that item to a close. And move to item 5, which is our engagement and participation strategy. If you're not required for this item, thank you very much for your attendance, and you may go for some well-earned lunch. We'll now go to item 5. Would you like to come in before I introduce this item, Councillor Griffiths?
Yes, Chair. Unfortunately, I have to leave for a previous engagement.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance and contributions today.
Okay, bye-bye.
I know Councillor Bennett and Councillor Walter have had to leave the meeting as well for previous engagements. I'll just let members of the Corporate Management Board to leave the chamber. Okay, we'll move to item 5 then, members, and the engagement and participation strategy. I'm not sure who's taking this report. Caris, are you taking this report for us? So I'll invite Caris Lord then, our Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, to introduce this report. Thanks, Caris.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll just briefly introduce it, and then I've got some colleagues here in the chamber with me who will do a short presentation really with regards to the strategy. This draft strategy was actually taken to Cabinet back in October, at which point a 12-week consultation period was agreed. We're coming to this committee this morning as part of that consultation process, and we are committed to gathering up all of the feedback, reviewing the strategy on the basis of that feedback, and then taking it back to Cabinet for final approval. So any comments made this morning will be gathered up and will feed into that consultation process that we're currently undertaking. So I think we've asked, if you're happy, Chair, if we do a brief presentation this morning just outlining for you some of the key issues. So I'll pass over to my colleagues, either Phil O'Brien or Zoe Edwards, who are both in the chamber with me today, to take that forward.
Thank you, Caris. Welcome, Phil. Welcome, Zoe. Please take us through the presentation.
Thank you. Yes, I'll just take you through the presentation now, if that's okay. Okay, so we'll make a start. So obviously we've been carrying out engagement events. So this will be another one to add to that. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to discuss this with you all. So just an introduction then. So the council obviously has a duty to engage effectively with the people of Bridgend. We believe that good engagement is the responsibility of everyone who works for the council. Communication is two-way, and it's important that we listen to and take on ideas from the public, as well as giving out clear information. And this strategy sets out how we will do this. So the commitments that underpin this strategy. Oh, was that away. Sorry, we're having some technical issues a sec. Typical.
No problem at all. Take your time.
Yeah, stop sharing for some reason, but
Jess, can you share the presentation for Zoe, or Jessica might be able to do it now.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'll just share now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jess can control the presentation.
Oh, so brilliant! That'll be easy.
She moves it forward for you when you indicate.
Lovely, thank you. Here we go. So yeah, as we were saying, so the commitments, if we can move on to that that slide. So I think we got to the end. I'm happy to go back to the start. That's fine. I'm going to go right back to the start. There we go.
like a weather presenter, aren't you? Like clicking the button, you know what I mean?
Oh gosh, I know. Yes. Okay. So the introduction and the principles and the legislation that underpins this strategy are set out below, which are the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, the Equality Act 2010 that we're all familiar with, the Welsh Language Measure 2011, and the Local Government and Elections Wales Act. We can move to the next slide. The strategy sets out the corporate approach to engagement and the people of Bridgend County Borough. And the principle of the strategy aims to promote the following. So collectively, choice, collaborative working and independence all intertwined together. There we go. So the engagement principles that we have signed up to the national principles for the public engagement in Wales, and that gives guidance for best practice on citizens' engagement, ensuring that information provided is jargon-free, appropriate and understandable. And then this is made up of various elements, including participation, so people being actively involved with policy makers and service planners from an early stage of strategy and service planning review. Consultation, a formal process by which policymakers and service providers ask the views of interested groups and individuals. Engagement, an active and participative process by which people can influence and shape policy and services that includes a wide range of different methods and techniques. Co-production, an asset-based approach to public services that enables people providing and people receiving services to share power and responsibility and to work together in equal, reciprocal and caring relationships. Involvement requires organisations to be open to influence from citizens and stakeholders, move into a culture of working with rather than doing to, and being supported to remain involved in the process. Thank you. Next slide. So the plans for engagement around this strategy, so during this period of consultation, we will carry out and are carrying out presently social media campaigns, polls on the consultation project page, an ideas board, press releases, face-to-face engagement sessions, explainer sessions with other organisations, for example, Bridgend College. We will use social media and media releases to promote the consultation and have asked our partner organisations such as Arwen, Halo and Barvo to also promote the consultation on their social media. We will also share the consultation with town and community councils, which we have done, and also schools to share within their organisations and with their community members. Accessibility is obviously being considered, so we just want to make sure that everybody can get as involved as possible. So we're working with the Youth Council, who will have a discussion session and share ideas around this also. And then obviously we've got different versions which are accessible, so the large print, easy read, youth, and the standard. So all available in Welsh and English, and online or paper formats are also available. Sorry. Okay, so if we start to, if anybody's got any questions at this point, obviously you're more than welcome to come in. Otherwise, we can move on to the aims of the strategy.
You can do so. We've all read the strategy, but of course you can take us through it briefly if you like. I always stress the briefly because we end up going into the 4th or 5th hour of the meeting. So if you could be brief in outlining the objectives, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I'll just take you through the aims, and then hopefully that can maybe encourage some ideas or discussions around those. So aim 1 is to bring all the council's consultation, engagement and participation activities together into a single, easily accessible online hub with the long-term objective of developing a portal that joins together all pathways for participation in BCBC. So just to ask then, are we satisfied with the proposed aim 1? How would you change or develop aim 1? And what additional actions would help us to achieve aim 1? And ideas welcome.
Okay. I don't know about members, but I've treated this in a more generic and overarching way in providing comments on the overall engagement and participation strategy rather than treating it by aims. But I'm happy for members to come in if they wish to do so. Otherwise, we can make some general comments. What are members' views? Councillor Williams?
Thank you very much. I just had 3 general comments on the whole report that I'm happy to bring in together after the presentation.
Yeah, I've got some general comments as well, Zoe. Essentially, I'll allow you to continue with the aims and objectives. I don't see anything wrong at all with the aims and objectives of the strategy. I think, well, we'll get onto it soon. It's about how we measure the success of the strategy. So we'll pick that up in a bit, but perhaps you can go through all of the aims and then we can sum that up at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense, no problem. Here we go. So that's aim 1, aim 2, ensure effective engagement and participation across Bridgend County Borough. And aim 3, to keep up to date with the latest and best methods of engaging with residents of Bridgend County Borough. And that's the 3 aims.
And that's the thing, who could disagree with the aims, isn't it, really? So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for the engagement and participation strategy, much of which, as I said, nobody could disagree with. However, it's about measuring the success of the strategy. I'm very pleased, start with a positive. The National Survey for Wales questions regarding local democracy published on the 4th of April said that people living in Denbighshire #1, Gwynedd #2, and then Bridgend was #3 out of 22 were more likely to feel able to influence decisions in their local area, compared with people from Powys, who is the worst, Blaenau, Gwent and Flintshire. So this is great, but obviously we're striving to be the best. I've referred to ensuring that we can measure the outcomes of the implementation of the strategy, but perhaps I can pick up a few comments on how we engage. You mentioned through the report that we engage via our website, public engagement events, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, e-petitions, members of the public in the gallery, of which there are none. All of them are fantastic objectives. Perhaps I can just run through a few of them, if I may, of where we sit at the moment, and then perhaps I can gain your thoughts on how we improve the situation which we're in. So first of all, the website. I'm not entirely convinced that the website is the easiest to navigate at present. I'm sure there'll be an acknowledgement of that across all officers and members. So do you know how many clicks it takes to see the papers for this meeting from the homepage? And that's even if you know where it is. 6. So it's not giving people really access to viewing this meeting. Public engagement. So therefore I get the impression that we're always constantly speaking to ourselves and navel gazing to a certain extent rather than advertising our work. So I think we should be reflecting our debates in this chamber and how we scrutinise the administration from our perspective. And of course, from a cabinet perspective, we've got the cabinet member for finance here, of what activities they are doing in promoting public services. Facebook. Now, do you think we do well enough engaging people via our social media channels? We have 19,000 followers out of a potential 145,000 residents. And our social media policy states that we sometimes follow and like people or pages that provide information which is pertinent to our work as a local authority. So on that basis, I'm not sure why we follow Jennifer Lopez and not a single county councillor. I checked, we follow Jennifer Lopez on Facebook, but we don't follow a single county borough councillor on our Facebook page. We seem to use Twitter or X now very well, but our YouTube channel is used infrequently. I checked it out and we've posted just 5 videos over the last 4 months. and some of our content has only had a handful of views. And one of the most important decisions which the council makes on the budget last year attracted just 100 views on our YouTube channel 10 months ago. So my question is what we're planning on doing to ensure that we are more effective engaging with the public through visual content rather than just written content, which is relevant to people's everyday lives. And what we're going to do to use us, all of the members, as community leaders, who are elected representatives who can communicate the council's key messages rather than potentially bland written press releases about public consultations which switch the ordinary person off. So I move on. With regards to e-petitions, which you mentioned in the report, I took the opportunity to look at how many e-petitions we've had. The answer is 2. And we haven't had one which has been submitted during this term of office since May 2022. So in my experience as well, we haven't had a single person observe meetings from the public gallery in my time as a chair. So how are we advertising this? And how many people view our meeting live or on catch-up? In my experience, we haven't had a single request from a member of the public for an item of scrutiny. We haven't had a single request from a member of the public to give evidence. So therefore, there's a lack of the how in how we're going to deliver the strategy. What's the ultimate objective of what is a fantastic strategy, but how are we going to implement it? So I'd be keen on knowing on all of the different lists about site hits, the number of responses and levels of engagement with the scrutiny process, reviewing how the consultation has impacted on policy development and how we liaise with children and young people, all admirable aims. But I would like to know how we do it so we can come back in a year's time when this strategy has been implemented and see what success looks like. A lot of information there I've given, but perhaps you can answer and build upon some of those comments. Councillor Howell-Williams would like to come in first.
Sorry, is there a glitch? Because we can't hear anything online.
We can't pick anything up.
Sorry, Councillor Williams' mic wasn't turned on. I'll just ask him to start again.
Right. Sorry about that. Yes, as I was saying, I recognise what you say there, Chair, but I believe that the strategy as itself sets out very clear the council's obligations in what it needs to do, and how we do it. That has to be flexible, obviously, and I accept what you say, but I think our obligation is to give residents the opportunity to engage, and then we need to be flexible and dynamic in sort of like, and we take advice from yourself and from others on how the best way to engage with people. It's sort of, I think we've got a very successful citizens panel, and that does have a very good return rate. But we need to do a little bit more than that. I think the object here, I mean, the consultation is open till the 22nd of January, but the object here is to get feedback from yourself and say, well, what channels should we be using? And sort of, it's going to be a mixture of digital, direct contact. I went out to do some direct contact sessions on the MTFS last year. Zoe was there with us. No, it was sporadic, should we say, to say the best, wasn't it? No. We had some very good interactions, but some of those interactions were, they just walked straight past us. And it's very difficult to you can be there putting leaflets in people's faces, but maybe that's not the right way to do it. So it's all about sort of understanding how people get their news or how people get their information. You can put it on the news at 10, but I didn't watch the news at 10 last night, so I would have missed it.
Well, yes, that's kind of my whole point, really, is that you use the whole range of communications sort of sources at your disposal to be able to get your message out there. What we want to know as a scrutiny committee is how you measure success of implementing this engagement and participation strategy, because they're all fantastic objectives. As I said, no one will disagree with the aims and objectives of this strategy. I'm sure nobody online in the scrutiny committee meeting will dispute what you're aiming to do. but we need to know how you're going to measure it. What does success look like?
I think probably the main point to make is the aims and objectives are the heart of this strategy, and following this consultation, which is why we're doing the consultation, will be a measurable action plan that'll come from it, and I would like for that, or I see for that to be shaped by not just my small team. Obviously this involves every person in Bridgend, so and wider. So yeah, I think the important thing is that we have interaction and feedback from the departments, and that they help to create those actions accordingly. So I don't see as it being owned by my team. I think it's, as a corporate strategy, and I think everybody should be involved in shaping that.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I think in terms of your observations, they're pretty accurate on that basis, and that's something we need to use as guidelines in terms of the improvement of our local democracy. In terms of deliverability, we have seen real successes across the digital channel. We've seen, our engagement from the citizens transition from face-to-face to telephony, and now specifically the highest channel is digital. So there's opportunities there where we can leverage. Totally take on board the website. I think that's something we need to take away in terms of that local democracy. How do we make that prominent in terms of accessible, but it's around language as well and engagement. So there's a cohort of people from young persons right up to the older persons that we need to be engaging with and finding successes. And I think that will be what merits the strategy. I think the broader objectives of strategy, yes, we need to engage, and then utilising those tools to identify those, albeit a difficult task, but it's key, as a worker within the local democracy, we want to have the things like the budget out there, and people understanding and realising what we're delivering for the constraint within the constraints we are. So I think it's the principles there, as Councillor Williams outlined. It's about applying then the methodology in terms of the measurements, and I think there's some key criteria there, but which we can make improvements on. And some of those readings might not be particularly good in terms of the visualization around the YouTube channels, but it's about what we use the tool sets in terms of engaging. My account subscribers 35,000 is about capturing those people's hearts and minds, and then to be engaging with us to facilitate and support us going forward in terms of our policy decisions as well. So it's really key. So we really take on board that and look at some of those areas that you have highlighted.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's why I mentioned visual content, because we often put things up on our Facebook page, which is in written form. It doesn't necessarily engage people. I was just fascinated why we, followed Jennifer Lopez rather than all the county councillors. You'd think it'd be something which you would do, follow all 51 councillors rather than Jennifer Lopez. Anyway, I've made that point. I'll bring in Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have to say, I don't follow Jennifer Lopez, but I wholeheartedly support everything you've just said there. I had 3 areas that I looked at as us as members, and then feedback that I've had from members of the public with regards to communication and accessing the local authority. So the first one is that we had a peer review earlier on this year where members had the opportunity to discuss what they thought went well with communication and badly. And as group leaders as well, we also met, and we were told we'd have the findings of that and the report would be sent to us. We're still waiting on it. So if we're carrying out our internal communications and we're waiting on reports with the answers, then we need to be having that information so that we can see where we are going well and where we are failing, so that we can improve ourselves internally before we even go out externally and ask individuals. One thing that I'm always getting contacted about is telephoning the local authority. If our residents cannot get hold of someone on the telephone because they're waiting for a call to be answered or they're being passed from pillar to post, they're not going to then engage with us. And not all residents have access to a computer. I have 2 elderly grandmothers who wouldn't even know what a computer is. They can't access the library, so I know that everything's going digital, but we still have that cohort who cannot access social media, cannot access websites. want to come cannot access the council or libraries either, and want to do something over the telephone. So we've got to make sure that they can contact us. And then finally, on consultations, I think there's a general lack of engagement because residents don't feel their voices are being heard. Because when we go out for consultation for things like the budget and we get our answers, we're not always following what the public want. So I think we need to engage better with the public to get them to have more faith in us as a local authority, because everyone always criticises the bad, but I don't think we do enough either to show what good we do in this authority. And I think we need to do more of that, as well as celebrating the good online as well and in face-to-face. So yeah, those are the 3 points that I picked up. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. Carys, do you want to come in first, or Martin?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in first. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your questions, Councillor Williams. And they're all, I think they're all very relevant and very pertinent, really. With regards to the peer review that we had done, and you not having had that report, I apologise that you haven't had the report. One of the key factors we needed to take forward the work on that report is in relation to the appointment to a post, a key post, which will actually also have an important role to play in some of the work that will flow from this strategy. Unfortunately, we've not been able to recruit to that post. Therefore, some of the work that we had planned to do has not moved ahead as quickly as it should have done. And therefore, that will have prevented us probably getting that report out to you. But I will take that back and have a look at that for you. With regards to the telephones, I'm sure either Martin or Phil can give a more detailed answer, but I think what I would say on that is that we are very conscious of what you're saying about that we need to use multiple different ways of engaging with people, because not everybody is comfortable using a laptop, or in fact can even has the skill set to be able to do that, and we do recognise that. Therefore, that's why in the strategy there are so many different platforms put forward with regards to how we contact people. And we need to make sure that we use all of those where they're appropriate. I acknowledge the issue around the telephone, and maybe some of my colleagues can come back on that, but we are trying hard to make sure that those phones are managed, that people don't have to wait too long, and actually an important strategy that we do have is that somebody's issue is dealt with at the first call. Now what that means is they shouldn't be getting bounced, as you've mentioned, from one call handler to another. Some will move further back in the system because if it's very detailed or very you need a lot of detailed knowledge in order to answer that phone, then we will move that call through. But we do endeavour to deal with as many as we can at the first point of contact. What that can mean is some of our calls can take a considerable length of time to sort out, but at least the customer then gets a resolution and does not get handled, does not get moved from pillar to post. And your issue about our voices being heard, I think that's very valid. I think sometimes we don't quite complete that loop with regards to we ask people, we analyse what they say, and then we don't necessarily go back and tell them what the outcome has been. And sometimes it's not possible to give people everything that they want. But we need to have an honest dialogue and go back to them and tell them why that's the case, whether it's due to actually it's not a function that the council undertakes. It might very well be tied up and we don't have the resources to be able to do it. And just lastly on that one, you've mentioned the budget consultation. We are going to try and do a more detailed budget consultation this time. The last couple of years, they've been fairly high level. We are going to try and include more detail when we go out on the budget consultation in January. But again, what we're also doing is going to put out information so that people understand some of the issues about the council. They understand what the council does provide and what it doesn't. They do understand, for instance, when we go out on the budget, what we can fund and what we can't, and how much of your council tax, if you like, is actually funding the breadth of services that the council delivers, because I think many of the residents of Bridgend probably don't know all of the services that the council delivers. So I think some of it is about general information to improve people's understanding of what we do. And then picking up on your issue, it is about asking specific questions where we've got them and feeding back to people whether or not what we've done with that information and whether or not, if we've not been able to make the changes they've asked for, why we're not in a position to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Caris. Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add some context to around the telephony element, obviously, as an authority, we've left all channels open. Even in our darkest time during the COVID pandemic, I can assure you where there was requirements to meet face-to-face, especially from a homeless and housing perspective, we did engage on face-to-face. We've seen an explosion in terms of our digital platform, 100,000 transactions. We share this data with our cabinet member, and we do track our telephony data on a weekly basis with Phil's team. So to give you some context around that, we have on average 10 persons answering the phone. They're handling 1,233 calls on a weekly basis. If you look at our average queue time, it ranges from 30 seconds up to 9 minutes and 49 seconds. And our average call handling ranges from 11 minutes up to 1 hour and 33 minutes, and that takes on the point that Caris was alleviating or alluding to in terms of that first point of call. We're actually dealing with customers at that first point, and we're spending 1 hour and 33 minutes to deal with their problems. So, we're quite confident. A call handling rate is 98.6%. These statistics, maybe we should be publishing these to have availability. We're comfortable we can answer the phone. It's just it's peaks and troughs. When we saw schemes come out, then you obviously have significant wait times. But in a business as usual, that's the sort of remit we're in, and we're comfortable we can deal with that. But all channels are available because we don't want to exclude anyone in terms of accessibility.
Thanks, Martin. Councillor Williams, would you like to make any further remarks?
Yes, please. I think we just need to be a bit more open as an authority. And I think sometimes we try and keep so much information closed up, whereas, like I said, there's good information that we're not sharing. But if we were a bit more open, and when you said that about the call rates, when there's somebody who's in dire need contacting the local authority, they're the only person that they're thinking about. But if they had those figures that, if people knew how many people were phoning the local authority or the quieter times to phone, or we had statistics like that, again, as us members, we could also field some referrals. I know Martin's helped me this week on that very point of somebody couldn't get information through numerous phone calls to the local authority and all they wanted was a phone number, so it's tied up other people's time then on basic things like that. So I think if we could have that information, at least we can then, because I think we need to build up that trust again with the public and say, look, this is what we're doing. Like Caris said, this is what we cannot do or we don't do. These people do this, but be more of a two-way conversation rather than just the odd bit of information that we're sharing. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. It creates reputational risk, doesn't it, if you don't communicate properly with the public and if you don't use us as assets? Because if people have told me in the past, and no doubt they've told members on the call, oh, there's no point ringing the council. It takes too long for them to answer our question. And their last resort is normally us as members. People, all right, fine, you have people who are repetitive complainants, if you like, or people referrers, inevitably. But most people, aren't they? Their last resort is their county councillor to try and resolve something on their behalf. And then my last resort is Martin. So, and he's fantastic at getting back to all of us in trying to resolve our complaints. But it shouldn't be like that, should it? It should be first point of contact resolves your complaint. And I know that you're working hard to do that. And, I was quite scathing, I guess, in my remarks on the various different channels of communication. But it just underlines where we do need to improve, doesn't it? And in all of those regards, no doubt this strategy will be the start of doing that. We look forward to having the action plan and to be able to monitor some of the outcomes of the engagement and participation strategy, of which I'm sure we support, and perhaps we can schedule that on our forward work programme so that we can review it at an appropriate time in the future. Are there any other comments at all from members? Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank Caris, Martin, Phil and Zoe and Councillor Howell-Williams for their attendance. And if you're not required for the future item, you may leave the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, members, we move to item number 6, and that's conclusions and recommendations. I hope Meryl has been able to capture 3.5 hours of our meeting, and I'll pass on to Meryl now to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, as you say, there's 3.5 hours of dialogue, which you've asked an awful lot of questions and you've had quite a lot of answers, which I think will have provided you with some of the assurances on the items that you were looking at. There are a number of things that I'm getting quite a bit of feedback, I don't know.
We are getting a bit of feedback. I don't know whether anyone's ICT.
Nothing left on, is there?
Do you want to try the other mic, Meryl?
Is everybody able to hear me?
Yeah, you're fine online.
Okay. So the things that I picked out, which were not exhaustive, but I'll list now then, are Chair, you asked for a recommendation initially about the information that could be collated from the Chief spoke about at the beginning of the meeting. That some of the actions would be escalated to DMTs and some would be escalated to CMB and reflected in the risk assessment, and that could be collated and shared. So you've asked us to pick up on that. Then the leader spoke about the DFGs, and Martin agreed to provide a briefing note for circulation to members on that. So if we want to include that in the recommendations. We also got the, we spoke about the self-built homes and the whether that could be linked to other work that's ongoing with RSLs. I think Martin responded on that point, but he did say we could have a briefing session on that, and Janine mentioned that as well. If the LDB comes through next year, we could have a briefing session for those involved and for members to be able to pass that on to those who are interested in the self-build. The next point I've got is there's quite a few points made about clarity of the actions and targets in the report, and also the narrative, use of the narrative in a better way, because we've heard through the throughout the report, throughout the meeting, there's been a number of areas where there's been data omitted, there's been narrative repeated. I think there's a lot more clarity needed, so we can pick those items up from the transcript and feed those back to our colleagues in greater detail. There was a mention of the Heronsbridge report, just in passing, and whether members would want that circulated to them of interest, the inspection report, Chair. There was a point made then about the whether there was a link with town and community councils and BCBC about the right tree, right place, and whether we write to the forum to ask them to consider in the next forum meeting. There was discussion then about the green flags and blue flags and whether they should be included, and why they weren't included, and those indicators being changed to annual indicators, and also something being included in the narrative to say that we have 3 and 2 respectively at the moment. Going ahead, there was information on CAT transfers discussed, and some information can be provided from the spreadsheet to, I think it was in response to Councillor Tim Thomas's query about progress on the CAT transfers. Just one moment. I think there's also talk about the electricity bills, and I think Councillor Gerbie said Councillor Granville email her directly, she can help him with that. Then we get down to the part about your point, Chair, on lobbying for UK government and Welsh government about fully funding any new legislation. It's like a submarine noise, isn't it? I think that's everything I had on that report, unless anybody's got anything specific to add.
Okay, Meryl, thanks very much for summarising that. Thank you very much for summarising that. It's extraordinarily difficult to sum up 3.5 hours of content from our discussions. So no doubt Meryl will return to the transcript and see whether any other recommendations, but I think you've captured the vast majority of things. Just the 2 points. I think we should write to the Welsh Government Minister responsible for housing on the local housing allowance.
Okay, I remiss me to mention that in the recent meeting of SOC 2, that has already been done by Councillor Bledsoe because it came up in their meeting. But if you wish to write it from this committee, we can also do so.
No, fantastic. If Councillor Bledsoe has that covered off, then that suits me. And you mentioned my point about national policy commitments being fully funded, both in terms of capital funding and ongoing revenue funding. I highlighted a number of them: active travel, 20-mile-per-hour zone, the universal free school meals, and school modernisation. It's absolutely imperative, and I'm sure you gathered that from my remarks, that our core responsibilities aren't diluted by national policy commitments which aren't fully funded. So I think we should write to the Minister for Finance, Rebecca Evans, to underline that point from our perspective. And I know that the leader and deputy leader made similar points in that they're lobbying for a similar funding settlement from our revenue support grant to ensure that all of those commitments are supported. And I would be content if members are to support their calls. Are there any other conclusions which you think have been missed at all, members, or are you content for Meryl to write them up and circulate them as usual? So I think we're content, Meryl, for those conclusions and recommendations to go forward. And if you have any supplementary conclusions which come out of the transcript, then please do circulate them to members for their approval. Therefore, we go to item 7 and our forward work programme.
Sorry, Chair,
Sorry,
just on the last report then.
Oh, yeah, apologies.
There were a number of questions on that, but I think the sort of outcome then, if you like, is that you wanted to have the item put back on the work programme with the action plan for the future at the opportune time to look at it following the consultation and when the action plan is in place.
Yeah, I think that is the recommendation from that, essentially. But I suppose you can highlight some of the issues which I raised. So where we are lacking at the moment in terms of our engagement with the public in so many different regards, though that needs to be addressed within the engagement and participation strategy, the aims and objectives of which nobody, I don't think, could disagree with. However, the proof is in the pudding, and we need to see what the action comes out of the consultation and how we measure success. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, thanks. 2 things I picked up that I'd like to see is firstly that peer review report that we were engaged with, because I think we need to see that to see what our peers thought of us and our communication. And secondly, the call statistics, if we're saying they've improved vastly and our call rate, call answering times are no more than 9 minutes, and that I'd like to see all of that, because we're getting a number of calls and referrals ourselves about people unable to access departments. So I think if we could have those statistics or information on when best to contact the council in the less busier times, I think it would make our life a lot easier so we can go back to individuals as well. Thanks.
Thank you. That's been recorded by Meryl. Are there any other comments? No, thank you very much, Meryl. It was remiss of me not to refer to the second report. Apologies for that. Moving then to item 7, the forward work programme, and Meryl can take us through the next 2 meetings. And of course, we've got the other Scrutiny Committee forward work programmes and action logs just for our information as we have oversight over those committees. Meryl, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the committee has before it the forward work programme. It first approved in this meeting in July and has added and reviewed to it in subsequent meetings. The forward work programme for COSC is attached as Appendix A for the committee's consideration. The recommendations monitoring action sheet to track responses to the committee's recommendations from previous meetings is attached as Appendix B. The forward work programmes for the subject overview and scrutiny committees are attached for oversight as appendices C, D and E, and the monitoring action sheets for those subject overview and scrutiny committees are attached as appendices F, G and H to track responses to their recommendations. So if we look at Appendix A, which is starts on page 121 of the bundle, and so the next few meetings you've got coming up then, in January the 17th, you've got the draft medium-term financial strategy and budget proposals. And then soon after that, on the 30th of January, we've got the meeting that the recommendations on all the scrutiny committees will be fed back into that committee to be consolidated for sending on to Cabinet. And alongside that, you'll have the capital strategy report, the budget monitoring Q3 forecast, and a report that you'll remember coming out of the session that you had with Alex Rawlins on the user service, user perspectives to inform decision making. I don't know if you want me to go any further on, Chair, to the last meeting, which is the 21st of March, or leave it there for now. I think the workforce strategy with monitoring action plans in the last meeting, we said that we would look at that because it wasn't very long since we'd had the strategy itself. So that now has been rescheduled for 21st of March, along with the corporate plan, delivery plan to refresh the PI targets and the Q3 performance report. So I think that's where we are at the moment.
Thanks very much, Meryl. Obviously a busy time for us in January. Is there enough capacity, Meryl, is it the meeting of the 30th of January to take all of that, the service user perspective, and including the recommendations and conclusions from the MTFS discussions, or?
There are some things that we have to do in that meeting, okay, right. And I think maybe that last report may not come then, but I think certainly the capital strategy, the feedback on the budget, they will need to go then. So we can liaise with you, Chair, and come back to you on that.
Yeah, I'm just conscious how long our meetings are, and that's a significant item, isn't it? The MTFS and capital strategy recommendations. So there may be some slippage in reports which aren't crucial at that particular time, members, I'm afraid. And then, of course, we can discuss at our next meeting in January our forward work programme in March. Just to highlight, though, Meryl, what we've been discussing previously, on our long list of items to consider, there were the disability facilities grants, and I understand you wanted to discuss that today, or perhaps allocate it to another scrutiny committee for their consideration?
I think because Martin has agreed to circulate some information about DFGs today, isn't he? Yeah. So maybe members may want to look at that first and then decide whether either to add it to this work programme or to send it to SOC3 to look at their work programme. So maybe get the information first if members are minded to do so.
Yeah, Meryl, I'm happy with our recommendation. If members are, we can look at the information which Martin provides and then discuss it at our January meeting to see whether it's going to go on our forward work programme or allocated to another scrutiny committee for their consideration. Okay, are there any other comments on the forward work programme or action log? Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, a really quick one, Chair. On page 33, we've got the blue badge charging scheme, which is due to go out for consultation. It was due in October, but I don't think that has started yet. I understand the reasons for that, as Janine said earlier, it's partly to do with the 20-mile-an-hour backlogs work, but I think that needs to be recognised, that if there is any slippage, there needs to be a note somewhere just that we're all aware of it, and not for us to think that we've overlooked it in any way.
Sure, thank you, councillors. I'm sure Merrill will be able to add that to our conclusions to ensure that members are updated as and when any slippage occurs in our commitments. Thank you for that contribution. Just a couple of things from me, and that's the action log from our previous meeting. We would do a response from the Minister for Transport, and we copied in the Minister for Education on home to school transport policy. We were supposed to be in receipt of that a couple of days ago. I'm not sure whether we have received it yet. So if we haven't, that was within the 21-day timescale. I think it's 21 days anyway, working day timescales. So if we haven't received that in due course, can we send the Welsh Government a chase-in letter? And the second matter is that under the Scrutiny Committee 3 action log, we don't have the links to the conclusions and recommendations like we do with other committees. So just for our oversight, perhaps they can be included in future action logs from those committees. And that's all from me. Anyone else on forward work programme and action logs? No. Okay, move to item 8 then, members, and there are no urgent items of business in respect to which notice has been given in accordance with Part 4, Paragraph 4 of the Council Procedure Rules. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance today and your contributions, and I'd like to wish you a very happy Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you all.